brain slews, slick with ectoplasmic juice.
Ecstatic energy, a fire that fuels our memory.
What genealogy with spiritual topography?
Questions for your answers, we are data necromancers.
Wake up! Everybody wake up and go to work! Wait, you're already at work.
Maggie, I think I got something to say to you.
So Whitney, I was wondering.
Yeah, babe.
I was wondering, what were you gonna be for Halloween?
I'm gonna match your costume.
We have a couple's costume.
I'm Fred Durst and you are.
Jonathan Davis from Quarn.
And I have 2 Bluetooth speakers, or I don't know, we could just share one, I guess. And then
It'd be so funny if we were both playing Korn and Limp Bizkit music the whole time. I'm thinking I should probably really pierce my eyebrow just for the event.
Oh, owie. No, get a fake one.
I've not seen any convincing fake ones.
Doesn't have to be convincing.
I want it to be an authentic representation of JD, Jonathan Davis.
Jonathan Davis Taylor Thomas.
Jonathan Davis Taylor Thomas Smith.
Jonathan Davis Taylor Thomas. Jonathan Davis Taylor Thomas.
You go in the bathroom and say that 3 times in the mirror in the dark. This weird mutant human who's like the fused 2 of them. Let's see, what's today? 2 days ago. Today's the 60th of October. Dude, what if months had 60 days? That'd be kind of, it's only double.
Half the amount of months.
So my dad's birthday was on Sunday, and I watched Dr. Sleep, the continuation of The Shining, and there were a lot of similarities between the main character and my dad's life as I perceive his life.
Does he like The Shining, or what made you watch?
I have always thought about him when I think about The Shining, because you know that quintessential, like, here's Johnny when he breaks through the door? That looks just like my dad when he's smiling, I think. And I've always, like, associated him with The Shining. And, of course, like, in The Shining, spoiler alert, I guess, the Overlook Hotel, like, drives Jack Torrance, or what's his name? What's the actor?
Jack the Ripper. Jack Nicholson. It
drives him to drink and try to murder his family. Hey, are you okay? Come on. So the alcoholism aspect was there. My dad struggled with alcoholism, but then in Dr. Sleep, it's Jack Torrance's son, Danny. He becomes the man, Dan Torrance, and he also struggles with alcoholism. And so I just felt like there were a lot of parallels, and I didn't seek out that movie. I just like turned on the shit and I was like, okay, what can we watch? And that was like the first thing that popped up, and I was like, oh, okay.
On what?
On Hulu.
On Hulu. All right.
I believe. And I don't know. I feel like I still don't know how ghosts and like dead people work, but I think he's alive in my memories, and that has like through my memories, or like he was there. He helped me decide. He was there watching it with me. And at points I would like turn to the side and be like, that was really scary, or like, I don't like this, but I didn't feel like I was alone, you know? I was like eating pizza. I got like his pizza toppings and stuff, and it was good, but it was also like I cried a couple of times because it was so, I was like sympathizing so hard with what it must be like to be an alcoholic and not have control over your behaviors, really. And I know it's just a movie, but I feel like that's why I don't watch a lot of new things, because I'm so susceptible to the emotions they put out.
You're an empath.
I think so.
And you think so? I know so.
I've thought about putting a camera on me while I watch something new, because I tried to watch the Great British Bake Off, because I've always loved that show. I tried to watch it, and I was like being present and trying to pay attention to how my body was behaving, and I like rock back and forth, and I like get contorted, and I like clap and like get all freaked out whenever anything is happening, and it's just so much to handle. Like, that's why I don't watch new stuff, because it takes control of me.
I wondered how you deal with stress.
How do I deal with stress?
Because you come from back a house. Yeah, either kick him off
I just
or
want him to sit down.
Murphy.
There you go, buddy. Good boy.
You come from back a house, which to me is stressful.
Stress, I have dealt with it many different ways throughout life. Sometimes I turn to drugs, and sometimes I turn to physical activity, whether it's like dancing or shooty hoops or riding my bike. In more recent years, I've tried to emphasize physical activity as the cure for stress. In years bygone, it's drugs and alcohol, but not so much anymore. I like to read books. I like to write in my journal.
What about in the moment? Like during a stressful
Well, I've
situation?
noticed that there's this system that my person has created where it's like, block, deflected, this isn't happening, I'm making jokes and nothing bad is happening. But then like 3 days later, that is like lowered, and then it comes back, and then I get to process it and figure it out. But I'm super slow on the reaction.
A lag time.
There's a
like
huge
big
lag time, and I think that's like the basis of my survival. It's like, you're not actually here right now. This isn't actually happening.
You dissociate.
Yeah, there's a huge dissociation that happens. And I don't really start to deal with those feelings until like 2 or 3 days after they've hit. And in my personal relationships, I've had people been like, why is this happening now? Like, what are you talking about? I thought we already figured this out. I'm like, I wasn't actually there when we figured it out. Like, I wasn't present. But I don't really know how you stop dissociating once it's such a strong reaction that you've learned.
Well, yeah, and it's like, how long
behavior.
have you been doing that? How long do you dissociate?
Probably since I was 5 or 6 years old. Because I've always been huge into like fantasy and escaping through like sci-fi or fiction in some way, and I'm trying to be more present.
Especially
I haven't done any drugs or alcohol today.
In the moment too, like if something's happening, it's so important to be empowered versus leaving your body. Especially in a relationship.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be really detrimental if you were just like gone on the moon and then
Yeah. And maybe that's why the good Lord has made me single for so long, and that's how it's got to be until I figure out how I can be a good partner to somebody and demand a good partner for myself. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like my humor has always been my hugest coping mechanism. Diversion.
which is maybe why your relationship with performing and humor and is so tangled. Because
usually I'm like, oh, I don't want to show this. But then I'm like, but you have to show it. It's like this weird two-sided.
Yeah, it's like inappropriately expressed through coping versus hobby. Well, I think everybody, all the good comedians cope with being funny. But I think as sensitive females, we tend to like internalize it a lot more. And, we're more sensitive to that.
Yeah, I've had a lot of people like message me and like thank me for how honestly I can share whatever I'm doing or whatever's happening. And then I'm like, do I do that? Is that something that I do? That's interesting. I feel like I kind of black out and it just happens. And then once it's posted and done and out there, I can like move on. So it's like,
This is another form of dissociation.
yeah, it's wild to think about how much myself does without my main self being in control or paying attention. But I mean, I don't know what it's like for any other person to be alive. I've never been anybody else. So I don't know like what's normal or what's acceptable or what's healthy.
First of all, there's no such thing as normal.
Right.
It doesn't exist. Nobody is normal. There's a really awesome book that I want to read called The Myth of Normal, because it's just like, no, but nobody does that.
Yeah, I guess I mean like healthy, or I don't even want to say productive.
I think healthy is a good term. Yeah, because like to me, being healthy is about productivity, being balanced, moving forward, strategizing, versus like chaos manifested into a pendulum swing of stress and or unconscious doing.
Why is it unhealthy? Because it's decoupled from my main driving force?
I think because I see you suffer sometimes from it. Like,
Oh, from the creation process? Or
in life, I mean, through struggling emotionally through certain stuff
yeah.
versus like knowing which way's forward and not getting.
Yeah, I mean, I got good days, I got bad days, you know. But I feel more aware than I ever have.
You seem more aware than you ever have. What's it like to be more aware? It's weird. I feel like I might just be aging too. Like you just get more awareness.
Yeah, I don't know if we can really decouple it from the wisdom that comes from getting older.
Yeah.
'Cause, like I said, I've never been older than I am. So I don't know what to
But the longer
expect.
you do it, the more you're like, yeah, I don't know.
I will say that the 30s, my 30s, our 30s are the best. The absolute best.
They shit on
The 20s are
everything.
so fucked
The 20s are the worst.
But that just gives me confidence in how good our 40s and 50s will be too.
I'm definitely looking forward to getting older for that specific reason.
Yeah. And plus your kids will start to make their own sandwiches and stuff.
I like making them sandwiches.
You can make them more complex things that they can't figure out. Although they'll be geniuses, so they'll be able to do anything. I don't know, man. What is it? How do you stop dissociating?
I think everybody has different ways of staying grounded and what that means to you. You have the benefit of really, you like being in your body. I always dissociated from my body. I hated having a body. I didn't like doing anything athletic or physical and I had to go to therapy to learn how to stay in my body. But it's like you have to stay in your brain.
It's yucky there.
See?
It's yucky.
That's how I felt about staying in my body. I said, this is yucky. I don't like this. I think it just takes practice And for everybody, it looks different. The conscious decision not to leave your body will probably be very hard at first.
I know there's a lot to gain from practicing staying in my brain, but that just like dipping out is so my reaction to everything. It's like, whoop. I'm uncomfortable. Hey, gotta go. Let me turn the TV on. Can I turn the TV on? No? Oh, shit. What am I going to do?
That is so funny. You're the yin to my yang, because I will just I will swan dive into that like a freak.
But that's always been your
worse.
thing. Like, you want the more truth, the more knowledge,
I
the
just
more
wanna suffer all the time.
suffering, the more pain, which is, it's like the polishing of the soul diamond, you know? And I guess my approach is more like ignoring the soul diamond.
I retreated into my head, and you left your head, in our childhood.
Right.
Because I had a really narcissistic mother, so I had to reflect back on how I was constantly operating in order to stay safe. So that's what kept me unbalancedly anchored into my brain.
I think I was entirely too focused on the behavior of other people, trying to figure out if I was doing good or if I was in trouble or if I was alone or if I, like just trying to figure out what the hell's going on.
It's so crazy to think about how we were raised and how it was popularized in The Simpsons or Married with Kids, or even like Home Improvement always felt like rich people to me. Like I didn't ever associate with that.
Never watched Full House.
Never watched Full House.
Never
either.
watched Full House. What was that fucking togetherness, family time bullshit?
Like,
what the fuck is this? This sucks. This is corny.
It's just like how unconscious our parents parented.
Right. And that unconscious, that like not really being involved in the decision making or the outcome.
Anything.
Like, I don't want to be like that. But that is like the dipping out. It's like, whoa, I can't handle this. I'm going to let whatever happens, and I'll clean up the mess. And it's like becoming aware that I don't want to be disengaged. And then seeing where that takes me.
Disengaged and isolated.
Yeah, and then the isolation causes me to reach out, but then the reaching out is also poison in a way. Because I reach out and I don't always get the right
You're not getting
people reaching back.
That is where I do think next year when you start your therapist journey, it's like the amount of mental hygiene that you start working on makes life so less confusing and no longer operating from like, what's happening? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, my main operating system is just like, you got to show up for work when you got to show up for work. And, you should cook yourself food every day. And move around because it makes you feel better. If you can get all that stuff done when you have to get it done, whatever else you do, I don't care. Go forth.
Yes, you are surviving.
Go forth.
100%.
Prosper.
That's a good... Who gave you that?
Me.
Yeah. I was like a workaholic from 15 until Ruby was born.
This aforementioned set of rules is brand new. I've always been a workaholic. My whole life has been
stay at work. The longer you can stay
at work, be as available to everyone around you and do everything that they ask because you are strong and capable and you can take care of everything. Like that's always been the way that I've worked. So this new self-employed, having our own business kind of thing. Like, if I don't give myself actual parameters, then I will implode. But it helps me to write things down. This notebook has been really helpful to me to like keep everything in perspective.
God damn it, I was just about to say. Oh, Elizabeth often talks about, like, she was like, you grew up unsupported, and it's hard to find, still in this day and age, like, you're having troubles finding supportive people, like a community or something, or like a big group of friends. And I'm just like, well, I come from the industry, and I've met some of the smartest, quick-witted, most amazing people throughout my 16 years of working in the industry. 98% of them were very broken. And that's why we were such good workers, because we would work the 12-hour shift for $100. We'll deal with the front of house abuse all day. We'll deal with the back of house abuse all day. The camaraderie in the abuse, and then abusing alcohol and abusing drugs. I was like, so when you step out of that and become a parent, no one's coming with me. You know, it's like, I didn't, and that gave her, because she's always like on my case about that, and I'm like, I don't know about, I didn't come from like a knitting group, and then like all my knitting group people show up, and I was thinking about that with you and Aaron too. It's like we all came out of the industry and are now in a different realm that is a lot less abusive in every sense of the word, but no one's around.
No one's around. We have to meet our own expectations.
It's hard to do that by yourself too, because I think Elizabeth talks about how she's had a community of artists or storytellers, or, you know, being a lot more involved. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's a trip to try to find more people who are like, how are you doing? Oh, yeah. Do you want to come with us and go do a fun thing? And you're like, yeah.
No, I gotta work. No. I have to work, so bye. Yeah, it seems like a whole other world.
And it sucks because, like I said, some of the smartest, and I think some of the smartest and funniest people are broken.
Yeah, and I think that's why.
Yeah.
You know?
I keep thinking about when Central Standard first opened, that whole crew was on another fucking level, because like a bunch of people were coming from a really fancy restaurant in Kentucky to open up the kitchen. And they were like so next level. Was
that Casey somebody? I forget.
No. So it's a guy way before him. And then the front of house was like old Austinite fucking veterans, like, that have
like
just
career
been everywhere.
servers. Yeah.
And I immediately got thrown in with them because I was the only person coming from a different land of
background.
Down here, I was like, oh my God, it is all fucking margaritas and fucking tacos. I thought there was like 2 restaurants where it wasn't like that.
Too.
So, and we were all just on our shit, and the camaraderie was like crazy. It was so crazy. And then I don't know where, and then everybody left and dispersed, and you don't have that because it wasn't really there to begin with. It's like you're all there for someone else's. It only
lasts as long as service lasts.
Yeah. Because then I'm like, I don't want to go get blackout drunk until 5 a.m. I used to when I was 19 at the first bar I worked at, you know, then we'd all go get breakfast. But it's just like, looking back at it now, you're like, oh my God, shit was so fucked.
Yeah.
And then I know people now who are still in it, and they're in their late 40s and early 50s, and I'm just like,
still playing the game. Mm-hmm. That seems so painful.
Yes, I think that they are in pain. I do think that. I think they don't know how to get out because you make more money than you would at an entry position anywhere else.
Yeah.
So,
and also there's the familiarity of life that you understand how it works. There's nothing surprising.
Chop this. You get in here, stand here. You're like,
do your shit.
I can do that.
Yeah.
I can stand right there and bartend for fucking 11 hours. No problem.
What do you want? Gin Ricky?
What do you want? Watch this. You feed babies. It's like you're feeding people all day long.
But especially as a bartender, I feel like you give them way more than just booze.
Oh, yeah.
Like the attention that you give out and like the conversation and the
some days,
connection.
like when you weren't feeling it and they wanted the connection and they desperately wanted the friendship and they desperately wanted to connect, you're just like, I can't.
And then you take a shot and you're like, okay, I can do it now.
Like being an emotional stripper, and I'd have to like go on the back and be like, okay, this person bothers me, but right now I need to be there for them. Suddenly I'm where I've always been.
That sucks. That forcing yourself to be there for somebody you don't want to be there for, that's bogus.
You make a lot of money though. I mean, at the peak of my bartending, I was making $75 a year. Just standing there, like, because if you're a good bartender, you're getting tipped well. I mean, it is emotional stripping.
Yeah.
Conversational stripping.
It sounds exhausting.
I also never identified with other bartenders because they would just drink themselves into oblivion and want to talk to everybody. And I was just like...
I found that to be unique about you in that way.
The second I step out from behind the bar...
Gotta go.
Nobody look at me. Like, but they're the opposite. That's how they...
Yeah. I noticed that most people who sling booze end up a slave to booze as well.
I think that was the beauty of growing up with addicts for parents. I was just like, yeah, not gonna go down that looks awful.
That is definitely a similarity between you and I, because I didn't drink alcohol until I actually turned 21 and went to college.
Yeah, me too.
And I didn't think I was going to do it at all. I didn't think I was ever going to do it because of my parents and their example. And the fact that it ruined our family when I was like 5 years old. So I didn't ever want to drink. But then I was dating somebody in college who was like, it's so fun. Just try this. And he like poured chocolate syrup into my mouth. And then I did a shot of peppermint schnapps.
That sounds good.
And I was like, ooh, peppermint patty. This is yummy. And I remember like looking in the mirror and being like, oh. And then seeing like that you didn't have to overindulge to the point of being like
an idiot.
Fucking idiot, blackout, whatever, to have fun. But then it would always go that far anyway because I don't have any self-control, I guess. And
that's always crazy because I thought you would get that from hanging out with industry people. Like, I have learned how to drink because I know that we're going to be out for 6 more hours, you know? So I've
Right. No, I never learned how to do it right. I never learned how to do it in a way that was sustainable. I always like go too far and then want to never do it again, and then go too far and then never want to do it again. Okay,
so you and I never went out ever. And we went out to Tiki Tatsuya once.
Oh, together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, then we have to, I'll show you. It's
I mean, I think it's a valuable skill. I don't know if it's one that I need.
Yeah, it's something that you only need when you're like stuck in a situation, maybe like when you're on vacation.
Yeah.
When you're with people who are like constantly drinking, you're like, okay, I need to make this drink last for an hour and then I need to eat.
Yeah, like going to the beach with my family, they would drink like the Costco, the Kirkland Trulies, you know, all day at the beach, and then we'd have a cocktail at dinner. But it never seemed like I'd never get sick. Like I would never get too much. Maybe because we're eating all the time.
You're eating, and then
or
I don't know how much alcohol is in a Kirkland fucking.
Oh man.
A Kirkland White Claw. I can't. The second I sip those, I get a migraine because of whatever
Malt liquor is in
neutral
there.
alcohol is in there. It just does not. No.
Yeah. I'm always fascinated by alcohol and its existence in.
We've been obsessed with it for forever.
Yeah, it's so interesting that it grew up simultaneously with civilization. Like, it is such a huge component of civilization. There's so many different iterations of it, and the way that it is part of our society. Like, it's so acceptable to go get a drink with a coworker after work, or it's acceptable to, like, relax at the end of the day with a cocktail. But it is poison. It's controlled poison. Mm-hmm. And the effects that it has on our brain, we sort of know, but they're, like, we don't really know. Like, we don't sit there and think about all the brain cells that are dying as we're sipping alcohol.
It has crippled my mother. It has killed all of her, because it kills nerves. So in chronic alcoholism, it can kill all the nerves in your stomach, which is what happened to her. Mm. And it's devastating. Mm-hmm. But she doesn't think that they're related.
But it's always a trade-off. Like, you're getting something from that constant flow of alcohol. It's some kind of numbing, or it's some kind of...
Oh, it's the dopamine. It's the only thing that's there for you all the time. It's the option to escape. It's so many things. It's the lubricant to suffering and existence. And
there's also, like, sort of a lighter kind of gourmand experience of, like, fine wine, or, you know, like, people who get really into different types of whiskey, like, that sort of connoisseurship.
Off the rails with this shit. I saw a fucking reel of, like, some coffee nerd, but it's like every item he touched to make this shot of espresso was no less than $800. Like, every aspect. I was like, we take shit and then we just blast off as far as fucking possible, because, and people were criticizing him like, oh, okay, cool, this is a...
Can't make a good cup of coffee unless you have $1 billion.
Or it's like, oh, cool, it's a $480 cup of coffee. And he's like, this is my hobby. And it's like, yeah, you know, I don't, sure. You clearly dumped 15 grand into, like, this, like, crazy setup.
Yeah.
Because you really like it. But we love to fixate on just this one small thing. I was like, I want to know what kind of car you drive. Like, what?
It's like a broken down jalopy.
It's like, you've prioritized this so much. Mm-hmm. So it's like, what does your emotional landscape look like?
Right.
I don't know.
You can get as far into any kind of hobby activity as you'd like. Like, everything has been carved out and expanded and built up. We were talking about that the other day. I forget what it was in regards to. It's not coming to me. It's not coming to me. Specialization. We've talked about that in the pod before. It's like that energy of separation, and, like, further and further separation, delving into how different or how special you can make this one thing. And then you lose sight of everything.
Yeah, and it's... You know, I'm such a fucking metaphysician woo-wooer that the things that we're capable of has herniated so far in the opposite direction, and that's one of them. Like, the specialization. Mm-hmm. I'm like, there's so many studies about being telepathic and communicating or just strange instances, there's so much untapped brain power because we're like, ooh, the doohickey. I like the doohickey with the other doohickey. And like, because we also don't have guidance and we live in a three-dimensional realm, and we're obsessed with evidence and quantification, and
seeing is believing.
And those things are definitely important. But I'm just saying, like the hernia aspect of like, oh, God, reel it back in a little bit, get in touch with your emotions. Like, but we are, I feel like we are finally climbing out of the trenches of dissociation. I mean, it's like, think about what the wars did to people and the fear, and just even seeing the massive genocide happening in Palestine and Israel, you're like, God, okay. We need to go in the other direction. And we're still so like uncoupled from what matters in a really ballistic sort of way.
Could you offer a statement of
let me get my presidential
what matters
chef hat.
What matters?
What matters? I think we operate in this reality and in society with so many different masks, and like, you can't ever say what's really on your mind because that other person's going to get offended because that person hasn't dealt with their shit, and no one's dealt with their shit. So when, like, I was talking about this with my therapist yesterday, in the mom realm, you get so criticized, so hyper judged, just like everybody's slinging their shit at you all the time. And that's sad because these people aren't supported or listened to or loved. So I feel like they're just like a tornado siren all the time. And you're like, no one listens to you. No one listens to me. No one just holds space and goes, oh yeah, wow, that must really suck. I'm really sorry that, just like no one is present with you. They are so busy like, that's not what it was like for me. My mom's not that way. I don't do that. Why would you? You're just like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And as this permeates every faction of society, not just motherhood and other mothers, because I've worked at Guitar Center and in break rooms and stuff, and no one listens to you. No one says, hey, Megan, how is your soul? What's going up?
I think it would be freaky if somebody was absolutely present when I was talking to them. Like, besides you, like, best friend status, if somebody was like...
That's where I feel like potentiality of elevating society comes from, if everybody just dealt with their shit. And I feel like our families are so disconnected and nobody can communicate properly because this person's going to get upset and this person's going to get hemorrhoids and then you got to tiptoe all the time. And it's like just starting at the basics. Like if everybody above the age of 28 in your family was like, I'm here for you. If there's anything you need, I'm here for you. Like, you want to talk about how to navigate like your business, let me know, I'm here. It's like if every adult was a guardian for younger children, everybody's looking out for everybody else's kid. Nobody's sitting and trying to fucking take advantage or rape your child or molest somebody or molest you or and that's where we're at. It's like,
but everybody's an adult.
And nobody's an
adult.
And no one's a steward of like emotion. Everybody has the emotional maturity of a fucking cucumber. It's like it's insane because we're all just squirted out by accident because nobody knows about fertility. It's like, you really want to dig into this? Because we can go down into like fertility awareness and how nobody fucking knows how any of that shit works. And so most kids are mistakes. And then if you do plan it, you have to deal with all your shit in order to be a better parent.
Because then you'll just put all that expectation on your little poor kid, and then they'll get all warped and crazy because you are, and you never fucking dealt with it. It's nuts. There's so much to be said about responsibility and taking responsibility for your actions and the consequences that will radiate from everything that you touch.
There was like some crazy statistics. It's like 52% of all parents are narcissists, which is crazy.
Can you define narcissist? I know it has to do with focus on the self, your own self.
Yeah, a person who has an excessive interest in or admiration of themselves. So somebody who's just always bringing the conversation back on them, never has any interest in anything that's beyond them or what they've done, you know. And that as a parent is extremely dangerous because you're now making your kid have to navigate your distorted reality versus listening to your child and being mature enough to be like, you know, take care of their problems. We're narcissists. It's always their problem and everybody else has to deal with it.
What percentage?
It's like 52% or something. Yeah.
Good God.
Because narcissism can come from rich kids who were doted on and nothing, you know, no challenges had to come their way. The focus was on them, or it can come from the opposite. Severe abuse. So suddenly when they don't know how to deal with their own shit, and then, you know, the spotlight's always on them. And I was just like, God, so many kids, so many adult children are having to grow up without any guidance or...
Yeah. It's like, well, the way that kids are supposed to get, or the way that I got what I needed as a kid was at school. And school can be, I remember having several teachers that I thought were real adults, responsible, respectable, admirable,
resourced,
intelligent, kind, compassionate. So many like examples of what I thought an adult should be. And I found them at school. So I loved school. I loved turning in my work and getting grades and having this person who I perceived to be more powerful than me, but also not sort of ruthless with their power, but kind of merciful and like compassionate. They would like give me a good grade and I felt like I meant something or like I accomplished something. But it was still
suddenly you had value.
Yeah, they validated me. And so it was still wonky because I was always trying to get somebody to tell me that I was doing good. And I could never find that kind of validation within myself. And I think I'm still trying to find that.
Well, and it sucks too because in the book I'm reading right now about narcissism, they program your communication. They program your behavior. They program how you think. And you're like, so many people out there, so many kids are being programmed in a way that is not correct. It is code filled with many errors. It's not okay.
Well, it's like, why does everybody have such a warped view of the world?
Because Christianity and Catholicism fucking wiped out any sort of community or spiritual practice.
Monotheism.
Yes, monotheism. It's the whole
umbrella.
reason.
Just blame monotheism for the disintegration of the self.
Yes, I do deeply believe that when monotheism came in and you lost your community, you lost your group, and then war, you know, it's like...
Yeah, war has been constant.
You're picking it's like the same thing with cocaine and African Americans in the 80s. It's like, we're going to pick arguably the strong person, the person that's supposed to protect you and your family, and we're going to put them over here. And you don't get access to them anymore.
Mass incarceration?
Mass incarceration or war, the draft. We're going to take all these men, we're going to flick them away. And then they're going to come back really broken, and we promise that the VA, we're putting money into that, but in actuality, you're all fucking on your own. And it's a really broken system, and joke's on you. So it's like our government and our society and our religion has done the opposite of what it should have done.
Do you think it works for anybody?
No. Well, I don't know. You know what's funny is Erica, she does Instacart, or she's been doing a lot of Instacart, and she lives in a military town. And she's like, this is fucked up. And I was like, what? And she's like, every military family that gets groceries, their house is destroyed. And she's like, there's dog shit everywhere and pee and I don't know where to put the groceries and everything's just like trashed. And I always thought that was strange because I'm like, well, I thought in the military you like learn how to clean and keep your bunk tidy and sew buttons and cook your own
responsibility.
food. But instead I'm like, well, think about when I went to a poor inner city school, they were recruiting there and they were recruiting the bottom of the barrel because, hey, you're never going to go to school. Come with us. You know,
we'll get you set up for the rest of your life.
And so if you're taking a bunch of kids who are coming from broken homes or trauma, so that's one, it's a gigantic spectrum of people who are going into the military. But if that's one of it, it's like, then they end up in the middle of nowhere, Central Texas, with no family around and, you know, PTSD.
Yeah, I can't imagine like serving your country and then just being ejected onto the street.
That's all of them. And it's funny, out of all the veterans I've known, half of them have committed suicide.
That's so fucked up.
I just like couldn't believe it. I was like, well, wait a second. You had family and friends and you still didn't think life was worth living. So yeah.
Well, I guess the atrocities of war have usually been hidden from the mainstream view, but not anymore. It's more apparent now that war is not a good thing for anyone.
Nobody wants it either.
Yeah, and reading about how half the population of Palestine is like under 10 or something. It's like, what does this accomplish? What is this that we're trying to accomplish?
It's just like, it's power with violence, which I feel like is so, it's always been there, and I don't need it. Will it ever go away?
I've been kind of obsessed with the medieval times this year, and I read that book. I didn't get to finish it, In the Shadow of the Sword, about the rise of Islam and the spread of the Ottoman Empire. The book I'm reading now it integrates the experience of Muslims in medieval times into the rest of the story that's being told, because usually it's just focused on, the Dark Ages, like the Crusades and, all the different battles and stuff and plagues that are going on. But this emphasizes Islam too, and they were the ones who kept the knowledge of classical civilization, like the Greeks and Romans, alive through that period where Europeans kind of forgot about it. But it's what point did I want to make by bringing that up? It's talking about Jerusalem. It's talking about how that's always been central to not only Judaism and Christianity, but Islam to an extent. And when Muhammad moved, because Muslims used to pray facing Jerusalem until Muhammad in the 7th century was like, nah, we don't need Jerusalem anymore. We're going to pray facing Mecca. This is we're establishing a new place. This is our place. And I sort of admire Islam for how audacious it is to just like, nah, we're going to do this new thing. This new thing is going to be what's going to take care of mankind. And like, I'm sure it's worked for some. I'm sure there are like some devout Muslims who have a great family and a great career, and they're like grounded and happy and healthy. And I wonder
they
that
all got the fuck out of there. I mean,
yeah, we think that there's this period of time where there's stasis and you can know everything and everyone that's going to happen or that has happened. But everything is always in a state of conflict and change. And even in the year 400, there's Chinese people and Arabs and Greeks and Romans. Everyone's always mixing all the time. And I think that this idea of some like Roman Empire, that it was never as clean and as, like separate or like strong as you think. It was always being attacked on all of its sides. And I just think that conflict, especially over specific areas of the planet.
I wish I had a fart mic for him. That was so insane.
I don't know if it'll ever stop until we blow ourselves up. Because, like, this land is my land. Like, that is part of who we are as people. And if we could somehow, I think maybe a upfront visitation where everyone is greeted telepathically by an alien, that might cause people to have more of a global conscience instead of this like very singular, nationalistic sort of geographically located regional pride or like identity. It needs to sort of like expand to include.
It's crazy that it's made it this long with all of the
It hasn't been that long.
I guess it hasn't been that long. You're right. It hasn't been that long.
We're looking back on it as if it's like this long expanse of time, but a couple thousand years is a drop in the bucket as far as like geologic time, but also sort of like the time that matter has existed in this state in the universe. Like we're just a burp, which I think is cool.
That reminded me, I wanted to ask Full Metal this. This is completely and utterly unrelated, but a little less.
That's good.
A little less doom and whatchamacallit, gloom.
Doom and gloom.
It was like an experiment where they were popping air bubbles, and the energy that was exerted by the bubble popping was like greater than they thought it would be, and it was like a lot of energy. And they were talking about the Big Bang and like the rapid expansion and how time and space comes from that rapid expansion and how there's untapped energy in that, but we don't really know what it is. And they were bubbles underwater and it had a audio name. Like there was, oh God, it is going to take me so long to fucking find that shit. That's the general vibe.
Isn't that like dark energy, dark matter? Because you see its effects, but you can't actually see it.
It was like sumolescence. Yes, he figured it out.
What did you say?
Sonoluminescence.
Sonoluminescence is the best thing to do.
The emission of light from imploding bubbles in liquid when they are excited by sound.
That sounds crazy.
That's all I brought to the table. The thing that I was watching was explaining the measurement of energy that was coming from it and how they were talking about how that might be kind of a peek into infinite energy somehow. Because I think because they're witnessing something that they don't understand.
Yeah. Like, well, we don't know what the fuck is going on, but we think it's good for us. It could be good.
Typical human.
We're going to figure out a way to exploit it.
God, thank you so much, Full Metal Corgi, for figuring out that word, because I was like, I wrote it down. I know I forget stuff, but I wrote it down this time, and it's not there. I think I deleted it writing a wedding blessing to someone else.
Someone else. Doogie Howser.
Full Metal, is it a way that you could, in the future, somehow generate energy from? Basically, it's light coming from a quantum source and not a physical one. I secretly want to study quantum physics.
What is the nature of the quantum source if it's not physical? Is it nuclear?
He says in theory, but not in a meaningful quantity given input energy. Always. That's always the hurdle, isn't it?
What's that hurdle?
Putting in versus getting out. Like if you have to put more energy into something to get out X amount of energy, then it's...
You've always taken issue with the laws of thermodynamics.
Fucking hate it.
You don't think they're actually describing reality, and I think you're onto something.
I just don't like that that's the ceiling. I'm like, really? There's no like fun part of like, okay, someday we might get over this when we, do X, Y,
Well,
Z.
it's because they have to use those laws to build planes and rockets and stuff. So they had to make it solid.
He answered your question. He said, we don't know where it comes from, but we assume it still follows physical law. See, that's the shit.
Assumption.
That's the shit that gets my dick so rocket hard is when they're like, we don't know, but we theorize X, Y, Z. And I'm like, you're probably wrong.
It's brave to theorize, I would say. You have to make a theory before you can test it.
What is happening? You have peanut butter in your mouth suddenly? Go drink water.
What happened?
I don't know. I almost gave him away at the coffee shop. This woman was losing her shit. I was like, here's the leash. Take him. I'm pregnant and cranky and tired. I don't want him.
Yeah, I dig quantum physics too because it's so unattainable. Currently, it feels like, how can we know this? Our tools of measurement aren't built to
Not yet.
notice
baby.
these things.
We're too busy blowing each other's kids up.
That's right.
'Cause
We've
that's
got
more
earthly
important.
matters to see too.
Ooh, my camera's about to run out. All right, let's wrap this bongy.com. How many more MAWPODs do we have before I'm incapacitated for a little bit?
And what will that mean?
One. We have one more.
The next one's on Halloween.
The next one is on Halloween.
I think we should wear our costumes.
I think we should wear our costumes too. Full Metal says, fun fact, studies of optical tell me how to pronounce this. Poissonian.
P-O-I.
Poissonian?
Spell it again, please.
Poissonian.
Yeah, I think you said it right.
Sub-Poissonian distribution have led to a concept, but not application, of quantum noise reduction for audio. So theoretically perfect audio recreation. That's my jam.
I don't understand what you're talking about. What is that?
All right, next MAWPOD we will dress up in Halloween themed. Yeah,
and you guys should too.
I think we'll probably take, I don't know, a 2-week break after I have Lydia, whenever I'm able to. Although if I'm having really bad postpartum like I did last pregnancy, we might have to do it every day. But I don't want to edit it. I'm fucking done editing it.
I always have to refrain from doing too much when I edit. Like I always do too much, and that's why I can't be trusted to edit.
I think I know that this people are listening to it more than they're watching it, so I don't get wrapped up in what it could be. And that's why it's like little reel clumps, I think, are the best for that. All right, guys, thanks for hanging out.
Try not to dissociate today.
We're gonna film an ad now, and I liked some of the quotes that were left in Discord because I thought it'd be funny to bring up people's reviews.
Oh hell yeah!
I think Teresa said we were like the Mulder and Scully of metaphysics or something.
You're definitely Mulder.
Emma, I was going to ask you which one I was.
You're definitely Mulder.
I liked what Full Metal said too. Do you want to know what it's like to drink an entire bottle of NyQuil and then listen to conspiracy-themed ASMR?
I never thought I would be a part of such a production, but thank you, Whitney. They're making MAWPOD a reality.
I just got done spending the last 2 days editing like 4 fucking episodes. So I'm a little sick of it right now, but I know that will pass.
It's hard. I mean, most people find it hard to listen to the sound of their own voice.
I think it was like 2 Yammy Noob episodes in, and I was like, fuck it.
Yeah, I got over it too, but then I'm like, what are you talking about, you ding dong? What are you even saying? But it's all fun and games. I love it.
Bye, everybody.